Let me share my screen. Okay. So chapter 8 starts from page 113, 113. And it talks about manipulating variables with the change variable command. If you remember your pseudocode days, that was an intro to programming in databases. I don't know if you guys do any pseudocoding in Alan's class.
Yes.
Okay, so you will notice that in pseudocode, every instruction starts with a verb. You cannot start an instruction directly, and it has to be a verb, and that verb defines the purpose of the instruction. CL was created on the same principle. That's why when you are declaring a variable, you start with the command declare. If you want to assign a variable a value, you will start the instruction with the command change variable, which is chgvar, change variable. That's the command that you will start it. You cannot just write variable name equals to a value. This is not Java or C#. Again, you got to keep in mind this language was created back like 60s, you know? So what you're learning, some of this stuff was the only way to do things around 60 years ago. So everybody was doing that. All the languages were doing that. So it wasn't something out of norm. These modern languages started kicking in 70s, and they were refined in 80s and 90s. So as a result, what you are now seeing is what happened or started to happen 30 years ago or so, is what you are seeing now as much improved and refined version. I remember 25 years ago when Java would be taught in most schools, it would be taught in DOS. So you would write your code, Java code, in Notepad, plain text Notepad. And then you will save it as a text file, .java extension. Then you will fire up DOS. You will go, you have to select a class path in DOS to be able to run Java. Then you will issue a Java command using Java C to compile it. If it says there are errors, you go and you count the line number. If it says line 9, you literally have to hand count it because Notepad doesn't give you the line numbers. And then you go to that place and you fix the error, you save it and you recompile, and you go back and forth like that. So that was like 20 some years ago. And I remember even 14, 15 years ago, I saw some instructors still used that old approach, and hopefully nobody is using it, but you know, you never know. There are crazy people out there who still use Notepad and DOS because that's what they learn. So things were different. So you have to keep that in mind, that this language was based on older standards. And once the languages have the syntax created in a meta language, the entire compiler is based on that idea. You don't change that stuff overnight. You don't change the meta language of a language just because the times have changed. You may add stuff to it based on what it supports, or you may come up with another version of the language, but you don't necessarily totally revamp and come up with a new language and still call it by an old name. So generally, if there is such a need, we will drop the old language and we'll start a new one. For example, C was serving its purpose. So when C went object-oriented, they could not have called it a C because C was meant for something else. So they called C++ the object-oriented version of C. Similarly, when Microsoft adopted C++ and wanted it to participate in the .NET framework, Microsoft called it C++ .NET. That wasn't the C++ that was created in AT&T Bell Labs. Similarly, when Apple used a C variant, it's basically a C variant what Apple uses for their application development. So they have to come up with their own variant name for C. So like that, you know, when languages grow, they tend to do that. Java, on the other hand, if you notice, always worked on package architectures. So the language name didn't change, but the package architectures changed. So the core of the language is still the same. All it did was it kept changing the graphical user interface architectures. However, those architectures are still based on the same norm that Java established 28 years ago. So you don't change your foundations. That's all I'm trying to get to. Similarly, when you start learning RPG, what you will be learning is RPG ILE, which is much improved version of RPG than what you would see 20 years ago, which was fixed format versus free format. So the fixed form RPG is the one that in which it makes sure that everything goes in a certain column. If it doesn't goes in that column, it errors out. And you remember by creating physical files and logical files that you have to make sure that certain things go in certain columns. And in order for you to make sure that things go in certain columns, you go to every line and you press F4, it brings up the prompt, you fill in the prompt, you hit enter, and things go in the respective columns. So RPG fixed form was exactly the same way. Even you couldn't even indent the code. Indenting the code means you're now shifting columns. But free form RPG is different. So again, you have to take things the way they are. That's why I just gave you like this 5-10 minute speech for you to understand, because sometimes when you learn high level languages, it just really frustrates you and you're like, why do they do things this way? Because they think about it. If you bring somebody over who never saw a cordless phone or who never saw a touch button phone, how do they used to make calls before the touch buttons or press buttons?
They had like a rotary style kind of thing.
Exactly. And if you give rotary phones to some of the kids these days, they'll be like, what in the world is this? How do you even use it? And some of them think it's a waste of time to roll a number and wait for it to come back so that you can roll it again. See, it's slow, right? It's slow.
Just make a fast one,
Yeah. So things of that nature, and that's how things were. And I remember when they first came out, since phones were so expensive and dialing out was so expensive, that you would have to put a lock on the phone so that the kids can just call somebody around and you will be billed for it later on. So people literally would put a lock on the dial. It had a special lock and the key, so that people just don't dial out. Different times. So again, the reason I brought all these details was just to tell you that you have to take the language the way it is and where it's coming from.
Hey, so actually, I didn't realize that my computer had power, but now that it does,
What do you mean?
Huh?
What do you mean you didn't know that your computer had the power button?
Oh no, I didn't realize that my computer had power left. I lost my charger and I have no idea where it is. So.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you were. So I just wanted to ask you that the class starts at 2, right?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I need to find my charger before my computer dies. So.
Okay. Anyway, so the people with Morse code were given those rotary phones and they were like, ooh, that's state-of-the-art stuff. So moving on to slide number 2 and page number 113. Change variable command changes the value of a variable. An assignment statement in which character value can be given to a character variable and numeric value, which is usually identified with the decimal, integer, or unsigned integer variable types, logical with the LGL variable. So you will assign values to all these data typed variables. And of course, you can also do the data conversion. You can take a numeric value, convert it to a character type. You can take a character value, convert it to a number type, which could be decimal, integer, unsigned integers. You can take a logical value and convert it to a character. You could do all of that stuff that you could do in other languages in CL. What do you call that, guys? When you do the conversion of the value from one data type to another?
If you do it on purpose,
It doesn't matter. Automatic or forced, doesn't matter. What do you call that?
a conversion.
Conversion, okay. Can you think of other words?
Transfer.
No, there's no such word as transfer.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure then.
When somebody's hand breaks, what do they put on their hand to support it?
Casting.
Very
Cast
good.
it.
Casting. It's called a casting. You cast. Okay. So when you're casting, it could be implicit or explicit. Implicit casting is when you automatically cast, and explicit is when you force cast. In CL, there's no implicit casting whatsoever between these types. You cannot implicitly cast from a number to a character. You have to do explicit casting, for which we use built-in functions, and we'll get to that in this chapter. Now have a look at this code here. And that's also not exactly the same code, but you have something similar in your book on page 113, where author is changing a variable A's value to 5. So he's using this syntax that you see right here. I don't know. Here we go. Okay, I can move it. All I want to do is I want to increase the font size. Easier to read and see. So when you are changing a variable's value, you type change var. You could use keyword notation like this is the name of my variable, and I want to assign the following value to the variable. Or you could use positional notation and you can say, well, I want to change this variable to that value. But notice, what is it that you would do in Java or C# that you can't do in CL? In terms of like when you're assigning a value to a variable? What is it that you can do in Java and C# when you're assigning a value to a variable that you cannot do in CL? Oh, somebody wrote the answer in the chat.
Oh, equals.
Yay, good job, whoever did that in the chat. Thank you for writing it. Equals, you cannot use equals for assignment. You always would have to use change variable. Let's remember that. Okay. And by the way, guys, on page number 113, we have the day of a week variable. What is that plus sign there? On page 113.
That would be, I don't know the direct name, but that would be how you would allow just a statement of code to continue on to the next line.
Okay, so can you think about what kind of operator that would be that would allow you to continue on the next line? Any
Not gonna
wild
guess,
guesses?
I'm gonna look.
Anybody else? let's say I will give you the page number in the chat. Now you tell me what operator is that? Or yeah, be easier, right? If you have the page number.
The command continuation character.
Very good. Did everybody get to see that?
Yep.
Just want to make sure Tony is not the only one seeing it. Oh, in the Kindle. Oh yeah, I don't know. I've never used the Kindle version of the book. So the pages are all different. Aiden? So page 79 is not where you have the command continuation character, I guess. Wow. Oh, because they have shortened the page numbers. Oh my goodness. 16,000 pages. Wow. Indeed.
Those are in
been made-
1080p.
Yeah, you know, when stuff comes from Amazon, Amazon is a big jungle, right? So to keep things big. And I used to work at this university as a visiting professor for a few years, and there was the security guard right in the front of the building. And he would always read books on Kindle. I always ask him, man, how can you read books on Kindle for like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours? That you sit here, he's like, oh, what else can I do? It's like, right? You would either smoke or read the book in Kindle. Anyway, let's move on to page number 114, or this is the, I don't know, I can't even tell you what page number in the Kindle that would be, but it's among the beginning pages in chapter 8. Using a change variable with character variable. Here you can see some examples. So character values can be in any combination of characters, usually a quoted string. Do we use double quotes or single quotes in CL for string? Go. Good. If not quoted string, value is translated to uppercase, cannot consist solely of numbers, cannot contain a blank, cannot include special characters. Only if you put non-quoted string, then you would have to follow these rules. If variable is too short, extra characters truncated, okay? For example, the author meant to say that the size of the variable is too short. The extra characters that overflow the size of the variable gets truncated. For example, name is declared. Can you guys read okay, or do you want me to increase the font size in this one?
Okay, for me.
Okay. So declare a name variable of type character, size 10, store the name value Billy Goat. Billy Goat is 10, fits perfectly fine. But in the next statement, we say, I want to change the variable's name value to John Smithson. Now, John Smithson is more than 10 characters. What do you think? How much of this data will actually be stored in name?
Until John Smith.
Very good. Until John Smith. That's about it. Okay. Now, at the bottom of page 114, author gives you some more examples where it declares a variable day of a week, size 9, stores the value Wednesday in it, okay? And then he shows you that if you were to change a variable's value to Monday, notice he didn't use any single quotes around Monday. So Monday is basically a value a character value, and it just adds a bunch of blank spaces, like 3 of them, because Monday is only 6. Because string Monday is not enclosed in apostrophes, the change variable command also converts the lowercase characters in Monday to uppercase. If you want to retain the original case, you must enclose the value in single quotes. Now moving to page 115, which is slide number 4 in the PowerPoint. If the receiver variable of the change variable command is numeric, which could be decimal, integer, or unsigned integer data type, you must keep the following guidelines in mind. Number 1, the value specified can only contain digits, the decimal point or comma, and a leading sign. If the receiver is a variable of type unsigned integer, the value must be positive. The value moved into the receiver variable will probably be aligned at the decimal point, if any, as declared in DCL command for the receiver variable. If the value includes no decimal point, it is assumed to have no decimal points. Specifying a value with more integer digits than the receiver variable can hold will result in an error at the time the program is executed, not at the compile time. If the receiver variable is of type decimal, specifying a value with more fractional digits, that is to the right of the decimal point, then the receiver variable can hold will cause the additional digits to be dropped. If the receiver variable is of type integer or unsigned int, specifying a value with fractional digits will cause the integer result to be rounded. Does anybody have any questions about these 5 bullet points from page 115? I know these rules are a bit different in CL than you would have in Java. Okay, let's move on then. To illustrate the use of change variable command, here is an author giving us an example that I have a variable called my NBR set to decimal 5.2. Is 2 part of 5, or it is 5? Is it 5 plus 2?
No, it's
2 decimal slots with 5
yeah.
whole number beforehand.
5 total digits, out of which
Oh,
2 are
yeah.
decimal and 3 would be left for the whole number piece, right?
Okay.
Okay. And we have another one integer that is fixed size, so we do not need to mention the size. So if we assign a variable my NBR a value of 123, it will actually be 123.00. If you assign a value 3.14 to my NBR, it will be 003.14. Technically, those zeros may not print. If you assign a variable value 500 to my int, it will be 500. Nothing different. So if you assign a value, let's say 1000 to my NBR, what will happen? If I assign 1000 to my NBR, which only supports 3 whole number digits, will out of the 5 bullet points, will the third one be true? the 5 bullet points on page 115, will the third one be true?
Yep.
Okay, so that will error out during execution time. Similarly, if you assign a decimal number, let's say 3.5, to my int, what will happen?
Around it.
Yep, that is the 5th bullet point out of the 5 bullet points on page 115. If a decimal data type number is assigned decimal places and the variable doesn't support decimal places, then what happens? Let's say if this was decimal 50 and I assigned it a value of 100.2. It says no decimal, and I'm giving it a decimal. Now what will happen?
Around it.
No. What is
No.
the 4th bullet point out of the 5 ones? The 5 bullet points. What does the 4th one says?
Aiden typed it.
Drop it.
Yep. So it will be just 100. Yep. Aiden, you got it right. If for the integer, I assign a value of 100.5, then what will happen? What will be stored inside the integer then? What value will be stored in my int if I were to assign 100.5 to it?
101.
101. Okay. That's bullet point number 5 out of the 5 bullet points. Okay. Okay. Moving to page 116, which talks about using change variable and with logical variables. So here we declare a variable expired in page 116. On page 116, I'm talking about of type logical. And now we are assigning it the value 1. What does 1 means?
True.
True.
And notice that it doesn't supports true or false. It supports 1 in single quotes and 0 in single quotes. And that's how it is. I mean, like, I wouldn't say that's how it was always been. In languages like C, when they came out in 1970s, we would use integers 1 and integer 0 for Boolean. And then later on, we were given what we used to call enumerators. And enumerators allowed you to create your own data type. And in that data type, you would basically back it as an integer, but on the face, you will call it Boolean. And behind the scene, you will lock yourself into only 2 values, 1 and 0. And that then your variable of that enumerator type could only be one of the 2 values. Again, you know, we went through a lot of progression before even Boolean type could be used as a regular data type. In most of the modern languages now, Boolean is a regular data type, but actually behind the scene, it is still an integer. All the trues are 1s and all the falses are 0. Okay. Okay, now looking at page 116, performing data conversion with change variable. Did we lose somebody?
I think Christian disconnected.
Anybody else? Jonathan, I don't see Jonathan either. Right? Yeah,
We're dropping like flies.
yeah, it's two, yeah, I'm like, the list looks a little bit smaller. Okay. Okay, so converting numeric data to character data. The numeric value cannot be quoted string. I'm looking at the bullet points at the bottom of page 116, guys, which is also here. The numeric values cannot be quoted. Values right justified. The value when placed into the receiver variable will be right justified and padded to the left with 0. If the numeric value is negative, the leftmost position of the receiver variable will contain the sign. The receiver variable will contain the decimal point, if any, and you must ensure that the receiver variable is long enough to accommodate all the numbers, the sign, and the decimal point. Okay. Now, it is common practice to use the change variable command to convert numeric values to character values. The following character change variable command assigns the value 0012391999 to data to date A. So here in the book at the bottom of page 116, we have a variable date A, character size 8. We assign a value 123199 to it, and it will automatically be enclosed in single quotes with padded zeros to fit the size. And then if you were to enclose the value 123199 within apostrophes, then it will stay as 123199. Now looking at page number 117, we have a variable called amount due A. Its character size 11. If we assign a value 976.43 to it, it will actually be 0.976.43 because we didn't use quotes. Similarly, if we use a negative sign in a character value, then the negative sign will be the first one, followed by zeros, and then the number 0.43. So it starts filling in the digits from the right and puts a sign on the leftmost spot. Converting character data to numeric data continues. That's slide number 8, page number 117. If you have the character value can consist only of numbers, a decimal point and a plus or a minus. If you include a sign, it must be leftmost character in the value. If the character value contains a decimal point, the data will be aligned according to the declaration of the receiving variable. Within the specified value, access characters to the right of the decimal point will be truncated without error. Access characters to the left of the decimal point will cause an error at the time the program is executed. Okay. Now, if we have a variable called normal temperature, to which if we assign a value, if the size is 1, if we assign a value positive 98.6, what's stored will be 98.6. Because the quoted character string in the value parameter follows the rules for converting character values to a decimal variable, CL converts the values correctly. So it automatically casts it, in this case, from a character to the decimal data type, because we provide the correct format. Now, if we look at the second example where we are trying to assign the word fever to a decimal variable, now that'll be an error. It'll be invalid operation. So when CL converts a character value into an integer variable, it follows the same rules you might expect, except that it does not round the result when it converts the value. The following example illustrates that if we have an integer number assigned to a value of 4, and I want to change the value of that to 499.5, the number is 500 if you use the actual number without single quotes. It will do the rounding. But if you use a character single quotes, then it wouldn't do the rounding. It will just simply truncate the decimal part. So that's the difference between assigning a character value to a variable of an integer type versus assigning in a decimal value. Okay. Then comes page 118, using a variable to specify a value. So here you can specify a variable to assign a value to another variable. So if I have a variable called today, I could be assigning its value to a variable called day of the week by using the change variable command. So again, we don't use the equals sign in this process as well. Okay. Do we have William over here now? I think I saw somebody pop up here. That's William, I see that. Yeah, William Riepert. William, I just wanted to make sure that you know that the class starts at 2 o'clock, right? Okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure because you've been repeatedly coming late. So I just wanted to make sure that you know when the class starts. Page 118, using an arithmetic expression to specify value. If you guys look at page 118, and you would see something like this, what exactly does that do? It adds 1 to the existing value of count and stores it back in the count, exactly like you would do in any other language. Do you guys see another operation on same page 118 where we are calculating the area by the formula of pi r square? So we take the literal value of pi, times it by radius, times it by radius, and the entire result is again stored in the area variable. It's simple calculation. Okay, moving on to slide number 11. And at the same time, page 119, using a character string expression to specify value. Value parameters can evaluate string expressions. All operands must be character. Now, you guys remember you saw cat before. Now we will be learning about the bcat and the tcat. Cat is about concatenation, and so it about bcat and tcat. So what is the difference then? Bcat concatenates with a blank, and tcat truncates the blank and then concatenates it. For example, if we have variable a, the size is 23. We have a variable b, the value is John, c has a value I, and d has a value Smith. If I say I want to concatenate B, C, and D into A, what will happen is, this is how it will work. It will say, okay, concatenate 10 spaces with 1 space with 10 spaces. That's why you will see that A will have a value of John followed by 6 spaces, then I followed by Smith, and then another 5 spaces. That's how the cat works. It keeps the maximum size of the variable in concatenation business. As opposed to tcat. Tcat will grab the value of B and will truncate all the blanks. We'll grab the value of C, then we'll grab the value of D and truncate all blanks. As a result, what is left is John I. Smith. But again, A is size 23 and John I. Smith is only 10. So then followed by remaining 13 spaces. Okay, now next comes the BCAT. The BCAT automatically inserts one blank only. So you'll grab John from B, one blank C, one blank D, and the rest of them will be the remaining characters. So John I. Smith is how many letters? How many characters? 12 because of 2 spaces. So the remaining 11 will be the spaces. Similarly, you can concatenate with literal string with variables like dear space B, which is John, space Smith. Is everybody following this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to page 112, slide 12, page 120. Using built-in functions for conversion. We have a function substring, which we learned about in Java yesterday, and some of you will learn about tomorrow. We have binary, we have address, we have offset, and we have switch. The most widely used is a substring function. Use binary function only when you need to manipulate binary numbers, and the address and offset functions work with pointer variables. CL programs rarely use the switch function, which is a throwback to punch card-based operating systems that lets you test certain settings and control program flows. We do not cover switch in this text. Substring. Do you guys remember substring from yesterday? For those of you who are in Java with me, what does the substring function do? Yes, guys, what is the purpose of a substring function?
It returns a string.
Return part of a string. Okay, return part of a string. That's why it's called a substring. Now, in order for you to extract part of the string using the substring function, the substring function lets you use 3 parameters. And notice in CL, all the built-in functions start with what symbol?
Star.
No,
No.
The percentage sign.
the percentage signs. You see the word, the percentage sign before substring? All the variables start with what symbol?
Percentage.
All the variables.
Oh, and sign.
Ampersand, right. Variables start with ampersand. Built-in functions start with percentage symbols. Do you guys know what IBMers call built-in functions? No? I think I told you guys in IBM Enterprise Concepts class. What do they call them?
Biff.
BIFs. Yeah, BIFs. You should use a BIF. There's a BIF for that. You know, they would use words like that. So if you are not an IBMer, they will know for sure if you ask, what is a BIF? Surely you're not an IBMer. You're one of those Microsoft people, right? Oh my God. They don't like Microsoft. How many of you are going to WMCP conference next month?
I'm gonna try to at least 2 of the days.
It's a great experience, and students are welcome to go to the conference. That's why, for all my classes, that particular week, I'm giving take-home midterms, so we will not be meeting, so that you can go to the conference at least one of the days, if not all days, and get to hear those people, especially the keynote speakers. They are the people that, you probably, for example, we have Alison Buttrell. She is the person who is on top of this operating system, the whole operating system, IBM iOS. She's the lady that leads it. Then we have Tim Rowe, which is another guy who is in charge of all the RDI stuff, all the graphical user interface stuff. We have another person who is not, I don't think is coming this year, who is the chief architect of the IBM iOS. So anyway, I mean, like, those are the kind of guys that if you go to IBM to meet with them, you won't even get an appointment. So it's a great opportunity to go and hear these people, meet these people, and get to have a look and feel. You'll run into so many alumni. In fact, WMCP is mostly run by Gateway alumni now. And you get to see that potential employers, I mean, like, great guys. I mean, like, some of these guys actually fly from Africa and Europe to present in this conference. So it's a great experience. One of my students on Zoom, I think he lives in East Coast. Yeah, he's 1 hour ahead of us. He's flying in for the conference next month. So anyway, it's a great opportunity, especially if you could work the conference. Anybody working the conference out of you guys? No? Okay. I mean, that's a great opportunity, because work the conference means you got to spend time with these guys, the big guys, and you get to know them extremely. Plan for it, at least for the next year, to have those couple days or at least a day or so that you can work the conference, because the amount of interaction that you would have working the conference, you can't get it if you just attend it. Because think about it, you are around those speakers who are big guys in the user group and beyond. So it's an extremely great opportunity for you guys. Okay, so just so that you know, not everybody who attends the conference works on green screen or RDI or is an RPG programmer, because on the same system, you have PHP developers, you have web developers, you have C# developers, you have Java developers, you have other developers who work on other technologies that run on IBM iOS. So this is another common misconception, that people think that it's all about green screen or it's all about RPG. But all these shops would prefer people to know RPG or be familiar with the IBM iOS. The reason is it makes it easier for them to train you, because you're already familiar with the environment. Anyway, so substring function is where you extract portion of a string. So if I have Tuesday over here, from Tuesday, which is the value stored in today, I'm extracting, starting from the first position, the 3 letters, which is TUE, and I'm storing that in day of week. That will be the value of day of week. Okay, I'm now on page number 121, slide number 14. The bin function, the binary function, extracts binary numbers from a character variable. So binary takes 3 parameters: the variable, the starting position, and the length. So the binary function provides rudimentary CL support for binary data. Each version of CL didn't handle signed integers, but some facilities, including some application programming interfaces, require their use. For those releases, the binary function can be used to extract an integer from a character variable. The syntax for the binary is as shown in the book, also on the slide. So we have, let's say, to change a variable BINBR. So we are extracting stuff from that position, that starting position and that length into the decimal number. So in this example, if the character variable bin number contains the hexadecimal character value 0002F, the change variable statement would treat the first two characters as binary integers instead of a character and would assign the decimal value 47 to the DC number. Even though you can treat bin number as a binary integer, you must still declare it with a character data type. Using the binary function in the value parameter of the change variable command causes a binary to decimal data conversion. So that's basically what that does. Now, just 1 second. Let me grab my Mastering IBM I book. And I'll check something in that book. Anyway, that's story. Okay. Page 121 at the bottom, using built-in functions in the receiver variables. So that will be slide number 15. So we have substring and binary functions can also appear in the change variable command. Change over here, for example, if you have a variable text whose value is Bob is the boss, and we have another variable my character set to the size 2, has no value in it. So if I would like to change, now this is something that you can't really do in other languages that you can do in CL. The substring of the variable can be the first parameter also. So what you're basically saying is that in the variable text, I want the first 3 letters to be changed with Joe. As a result, Bob will be replaced by Joe. If I give a value longer than 3 letters, like Alfonso, then it will only extract the first 3 letters from Alfonso, which is Alf, and will replace the Joe with Alf. If you say, I want the 8th position letter, the next 3 from 8th position to be not. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the space, 8 is the starting point for the letter T. So I want starting at 8, the 3 letters to be replaced with not, so it'll say Alf is not boss. So you could actually use to replace portion of a variable without having to first return it into the variable that you would do in other languages. So here you can directly use in the change variable command that way. I'm trying to find an absolute table. So hard to find one because it's only used in the IBM world. I don't know. Can't really find one. But here, using the binary functions as replacing the first 2 letters with 47, so the binary equivalent will be that hexadecimal 2F. Okay, page number 123 and 124 talk about, is it 123 and 24? Yeah, the pointers. If you remember about pointers, we learned about them last week. And the pointers are memory pointers to other variables. They don't necessarily hold a value of their own other than the memory location for another variable. That's what they hold in them. So at the bottom of page 123, we have a variable called myQual, and its value is my library space, my file space. And now we are declaring a pointer, which is pointing at the memory location of myQual. So you can assign an initial value to it to start pointing at some kind of a variable. During the course of program's execution, I'm reading the last 2 lines on page 123. During the course of the program's execution, you can change the value of the pointer variable using the change variable command and the address function. So that can start pointing at a different variable than what it was pointing before. So turning to page 124, we have a myQual, which is basically the same code that you see on the slide. We have a myQual variable, character size 20. This is the value. You have a yourQual variable, size 20, with the variable value, your library, your file. You have a pointer, which is currently pointing at myQual. And then we created a library variable, which is storage's base, and it is currently using my pointer as its base pointer. So you can use my pointer to now start pointing at your qual. So its memory reference will change. So my pointer is initially pointing to the very first byte of my qual. Pointers never point at the entire memory, only the first memory block. The base pointer lib would have a value of my lib because lib is pointing at the memory location of my pointer. So it will only have mylib. The reason is because mylib and the spaces followed by mylib that equals to 10 characters. And the size of lib is only 10 characters. So my file is outside of the range of 10 characters. That's why mylib only looks at the mylib. That's why the lib variable only looks at the value mylib, nothing beyond that, which is the first 10 bytes of my qual. Then the change variable command resets the pointer to point to the first byte of your qual instead. So now lib, which is basically pointing to a variable, is pointing to the variable through the pointer, will stop holding my lib as its value and will switch its value to your lib. You guys understand that?
Yeah, kinda.
Okay, so technically, if I were to draw this in a pictorial form here, so I will say that, okay, so I have one box. So I have 4 boxes here, okay? This is the box of my qual variable. This is the box of your qual variable. Okay, so these are the 2 variable boxes. Okay, this is my pointer. My pointer is pointing at my qual. Okay, what is the size of my qual? 20. What is your qual size? 20. I have another variable called lib, and the size of lib is 10. I'm telling lib, why don't you ask this pointer, which is known by the name of PTR, to tell you where to go and grab a value from? And the pointer says, well, currently I'm pointing at my qual, whose value is my lib 5 spaces, my file 5 spaces. So that's total of, 4 spaces. That's total of 20 bytes. But since you can only have 10 bytes, I will give you the first 10 bytes from my qual, which equals to my lib followed by 5 spaces. Do you guys follow this far?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, during the course of execution, we decided to change my pointer to now start pointing to your qual by using the change variable command. So the my pointer is not pointing at my qual anymore. Rather, it's pointing where? To your qual. Since lib is dependent on the pointer for the value, it will grab the value from wherever the pointer says your value should come from. Therefore, lib, which was before pointing at my lib followed by 5 spaces, will automatically now grab the value from your qual, which is your lib followed by 4 spaces. Is that more clear now?
Yeah, that's perfect. So that's, and then so in the last assignment that we did, there was I believe, I might be wrong on saying this, but an open ID identifier. Something along the lines of this exact structure, and then there's a way that you can structure the pointer into that. So it's kind of goes 3 levels deep.
Yeah, here, but in languages like C, there is no limit on the levels.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's why this becomes very dangerous stuff, because think about it, without the knowledge of the variable, because it's dependent on a pointer, wherever the pointer points, the variable automatically changes its values. So you're pretty much doing memory management in your code. That's why when they launched Java and C#, they made sure that we as developers don't have access to pointers. Because in the good old days of C, you could have a variable to which a pointer is pointing at. Then you can have another pointer pointing at this pointer, and then you can have another pointer who's pointing at this pointer. So if this guy at any point in time decides that instead of this box, I will now follow this box, all of these guys are following who now? This guy. And also you had a choice of creating an array of pointers where a pointer is actually pointing at an array of pointers, where each of these array elements is pointing at different variables. So let's say this element was pointing at that variable, and this element was pointing at that variable, and this element was pointing at that variable. So you have an array of pointers, which is being controlled by another pointer. So in languages like C, you will write a pointer with an asterisk, a variable without an asterisk, and a pointer to a pointer with 2 asterisks. And that pointer could have another pointer behind it, which will be a pointer to a pointer to a pointer. And it could be a mess. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, it just like examples like that get confusing because we don't really understand entirely the capabilities of the pointer. So when it
Yeah,
gets that deep, we're like, oh,
it's pretty much like, understand it like this, that you can dynamically on the fly change during runtime where you want to grab your value from. So basically you have one pointer which can at some point in time point at one variable, at another time could point at another variable, then can point back the first one. So you don't need too many names for memory management. You just manage one name which is constantly changing its point of reference. So that is the convenience of pointers, that you don't deal with too many names. You deal with one guy. It's pretty much like if you go to a bank, you are dealing with one teller. That teller is managing behind the scene processes. So you are grabbing your information from pointer called teller. He is your point of reference. So if the teller grabs information from one process or the other process, that's none of your concern. You're only concerned about what you are there for. Anyway, then we have the dump seal program. It writes contents of seal variables to a report, which is submitted to a spooled file called qppgm_dump, which is Q for program dump. Does not stop program execution and useful during program development and debugging. Okay, can you guys go over the chapter summary on page 124 and key terms on page 125? Please give me a green check when you guys are done. Okay, except for Jacob Mueller, everybody is done, seems like. Okay. So it's 3:21. How about we take a 15 minutes break till 3:35? And I'll see you guys at 3:35 then. Thank you, Aiden. So I posted the week 4 recording of the CL class, which is last week's recording, and it's now posted under last week's button on Blackboard. Okay. So how's it, Aiden? I know it's getting colder now because I heard the temperature will drop in 20s. Will drop to 20s and then it'll probably may snow or something tonight. I don't know if you guys remember that many years ago, I'm pretty sure it was at least 10, 11 years ago, that in the month of January, the temperatures rose up to 70 degrees. And everybody was so hyper excited. And everybody was taking walking around in t-shirts, and everybody was so happy. 70 degrees in January in Wisconsin, unheard of, right? And what happened in the next few hours? Does anybody remember what happened after that?
I can only
So you-
imagine it plummeted to like -30.
Massive, massive tornadoes.
The YouTube link isn't working for me.
Uh, Yep, it was fun until the tornadoes came.
So I'm sorry, we're supposed to be watching a video?
Say again?
Are we supposed to be
The-
watching a video?
The class, the recording for week 4 isn't working for me for some reason.
Oh, let's see. Well, you know what? Let me fix that. Just 1 minute. I think I know
Okay.
what's wrong.
Did you ask us to do something with it?
No, I just was telling everybody that it is up because it wasn't up. Okay, see if that works. You don't have to be watching anything. Just, I'm glad you checked.
It does work.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Where was I? Okay, guys, how about if we log into the V2 Cloud and open RDI? Okay, sending in the request to log in.
Did you want us in RPG or Access Client Solutions?
RDI. And let me share my screen as well. And let me clear all the feedback. So as you guys start getting into the RDI and signing into your account, give me a green check.
For some reason, it won't let me open my CLLE programs.
What is it? What is it doing? Like doing nothing when you don't?
It's opening up a module and then it's opening up the name. But when I double click on it, it doesn't open anything.
Okay. How about, can you share your screen, please?
Yeah.
Oh, no. You're double clicking on the object, not
Uh-oh.
yeah. Open that source physical file that reads CLCP22JC. Come down a little bit. Yep, expand on that. That's where your source codes are.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My bad.
So a few more people left to give me a check that you're ready to go. Just so that, did we do any arithmetic operations before in variables?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, but we never did any examples with what you may call it, cat, tcat, that kind of stuff, right?
No, you only showed us how to do like that, the plus sign, and then go to the next. line.
Okay, but we didn't get to do any examples, so let's start with this stuff as our starting point. I think that'll be fine. Okay. So let me close everything else I have opened. And let's create a new member. And I am using the following sequence here, which is SP22 prog, and this will be our 8th program. CLLE is the type.
I'm sorry, my V2 crashed. We're creating a new member off of the physical source file CLP22.
Yep.
And then we start with a honor again.
if I compile my program at this stage, all it has is a bunch of declarations. That's all it has. Can I call this even though it won't do anything? Why is it error? SP22 prog 08. What's wrong? Why is it not compiling?
Program at the top.
Very good. Okay, so how do you insert a line before the first line? If I go in this, I press I1, it inserts a line below. It doesn't insert a line above. So you can copy paste, and then you can use your PGM. Now, let's try. Okay. Still, it is complaining about the call didn't take place, anything.
Your end PGM.
Okay. And PGM just like that. Okay. Now let's compile again. It's not really doing anything, is it? I go back and make a call, still says object not found. Is it compiling for you guys?
No, it's not.
Okay, let's try this. Start. And we'll have the end. It is saying that it is submitted to the batch. But really, there's no entry behind the scene. So change variable. Full name 1. To have the first name concatenate it with middle initial, concatenate it with last name. Send program message. in my message, I would like to concatenate full name hold on a second. Let me try.
Could you go back to the program?
1 minute.
Oh, okay.
See, it's not even submitting anything to the batch. So when I try to call it, is it doing the same thing to those of you who are trying
I'm
to?
getting the same.
It doesn't give me a library, it found in, says.
Yeah, same.
It is creating the member. So that I know for sure that it is doing that. Why is it not compiling? The member is there. It's submitting it, not doing anything. These are my spooled files. No. I'm trying to see if RDI is having an issue, or let's see if I try to go directly to 5250 emulator. Hmm. Let me see what's going on. How about you guys in the meanwhile start working on the quiz? Quiz for chapter 5, which is posted under this week. Uh, doesn't matter. If you want to log out, that's fine. Let's see.
Do you know how to get this away? Just delete it?
Don't worry about it. In the next compile, it'll fix itself. You don't have to worry about that warning. Variable full name 1 is not found. Notice you called yours full name 2, full name 2.
Oh,
Okay, save the changes. And recompile. Okay, now double click on that very first error again. Okay, now full name ampersand fn fn cat. Oh, you have an ampersand and a space. That's why. Okay, save that and compile. Okay. And that should fix it for you. Here you go. Yep, you're fine. Now go to the green screen, go to the Death Star tab. Yep, log in here. And then call the program. There you go. Cool. Okay, F3 out of here. And now let's see. Who else was having any issues here? Aiden. It's giving you that error on compile. Directory not found. Directory error. Is it like working directory not found error? Or specified working directory not, okay. Did you try closing RDI and opening back again? And then try to recompile? Because you're getting that on compilation, right? Sure, go ahead. Okay. Oh, no, just go to the compile again for me, please. Okay, can I see? Okay, that's fine. Now go to the green screen and call SP22 prog 08 SP. Oh, is that 22 or you wrote SPRR? SP22. You have to press control to get back your control. Okay. So type call SP22 prog 08. 08. oh, you have 8. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Enter. Okay, here you go. You're fine. Okay, anybody else having any issues, or everybody has this stuff working?
I have some errors.
Okay, would you like to share your screen, Devin?
Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong screen.
Okay, oh. What happened?
Oh,
I
it's what's wrong because it's
I-
on this.
oh, I don't see your code yet. Anybody else? Everybody else is okay? Okay. So now we have had the full name. We use the cat operator for that. Copy this line, line number 111, create a new line underneath it, and then paste it, change it to a full name 2, and instead of cat, do a tcat. Tcat, just like that. And we will display the full name 2, 1, 2. And let's compile to make sure that's compiling correctly. Now, for those of you who will run it, you will notice that in the line at the output line, you will see a little plus at the end of the line. I'll show you the code again for those of you who are still coding, but listen to me carefully here. When you call the program, you will see only the one line of output plus in the end. That means there are more lines of output. So you can page down, okay, for that. Let's try again. Let me F3 out of here and let's call it on a regular console. And page down on a regular console, page down. Notice the tcat just truncates all the spaces and I get this one long output like that. Put it all together. So that page down allows you to go one line at a time. I will quickly add the other lines as well. So as you are copying, you can follow along. Okay. So number 3 is where I will use, instead of tcat, bcat for with a space. And when you run it after that, you will now see 1 page down, 2 page down, and total of 3 page downs. Okay, so did everybody get this done? So we will gonna stop here, guys. And there is a homework problem for you guys, or homework for you guys, not a problem, available on the Blackboard for this week. And that is the assignment number 5 on chapter number 8. That's on page 125, the review questions 1 through 6, then 9 and 10. And for those of you who are still working on the quiz, you can continue to work on it. And if you couldn't get done by 5, then you can continue on it after class.